So what's your name?
Darla Church.
And where are you from, Miss Church?
I live in Cordova. I celebrated 50 years in August that we came here, and have been teaching, or did teach, for 20 years, and did problem solving, started it with my husband, and did it for 25 years.
Wow.
What did you teach?
I taught the gifted program
Oh, that's cool.
at the elementary school, but then I arranged things for kids all the way through high school.
That's pretty awesome.
It was a fun job.
Yeah.
What was your husband's name?
Thomas Church.
And where were you from before Cordova?
Before here, I was born in Iowa, but I actually grew up in El Paso, Texas. So I came as a desert rat to the rainy rainforest and managed to stay. I think I felt like I had enough sunshine during the first 20 years of my life.
Did you come for a job in teaching?
We had taught in Craig for 1 year, both of us, and then we went back to the University of Texas, El Paso, where Tom finished his master's thesis and taught there, and we had our first child. And then when we came up to Cordova, he taught, and I stayed home until the children were up. We had 3 children. And once they were in school, then I went back to teaching.
How many children do you have?
I have 3, and one of them was born in El Paso, but the other 2 were born here in Cordova.
Oh, that's cool.
Did any of them stay in Cordova, or?
My daughter stayed in Cordova for quite a while, but then family situations changed and she ended up moving.
And has your other 2 children ever come to Cordova or anything like that, or just stayed?
They come back. No, they come back to visit, but the jobs and careers that they chose don't fit in very well with here. So they're in the Northwest. So one's in Oregon, outside of Portland, and one's in Seattle. So they're close enough, and they pop in and out from time to time. And my daughter is now in Seattle too, area. Not Seattle, but that area.
What's your daughter's name?
Daughter's name is Dia Barrett.
It's just for the record. I know all this stuff. Don't worry.
I know. It's okay.
What are some of your hobbies like you do now?
Well, from the time I was very young, I did art. And so when I was in high school, I used to design formals.
Oh,
And so I lived on the border of Mexico. And so I had a folder full of dresses that I had designed. So my friends would go through and pick them out, and they could go over to Mexico in Juarez, and they could have them made up really cheaply. So the girls over there could just look at the drawing, and then they could
wow.
make it.
That's really
which was
awesome.
kind of neat. So that hobby is continued, and I made and designed my own wedding dress, and then I went ahead and have been doing formals and wedding dresses for people, either the whole design and making them, and now I'm kind of at the point of doing alterations for them. But I did many dresses for my daughter and some of her friends while they were in high school. And they got to help choose, they got to help kind of design it too. So that was kind of fun.
That's pretty cool.
Tell us about the other artwork you've done around town.
Oh, the other artwork I do, that artwork is continued because I do work with Harbor Arts, and through that, a group of us did the big 64-foot long mural in the elementary school gym, and that came about because my students used to say there's nothing to do in Cordova, so I would make them sit down and brainstorm, since we were already doing problem solving by that time, all the different things they could do in Cordova, and basically they were the outdoor things. And so then I had 3 of my friends at Harbor Arts work with me, and we did that whole mural as an inspiration for the elementary parents and teachers and Coast Guard people who came new and had well, what can you do here? Kind of a summary type of thing. And then from there, when the Cordova Center was looking for art, I came up with a couple of ideas there. And the one that I was going to do with group did not get chosen, but the one in the lower floor entrance of the Child's Glacier did get chosen. And I just kept expanding how I was doing it, and ended up with 3 layers of plexiglass painted in a 3-dimensional way. So that
Did
was,
you make that up, or have you seen somebody else do that?
I made it up.
Yeah,
I had
I've
seen
never
one.
seen that
I had
before.
seen one piece of plexiglass where someone had painted on the front and back of it and hung it in the window. And from that, I elaborated. From problem solving, where you just kind of elaborate and think, okay, what else could this be used for? And so
And then you put lights in between.
And
some of the
then
plexiglass.
LED lights became popular, and I happened to try out, I had some that I was going to put under a cupboard, and I put them over the painting I was doing a test on, and I thought, wow, that makes it glow, and it picks up, and so then they were developing the long strings of lights for LEDs, and I tried it out, and it worked. So
Yeah.
it was
So it
a
makes
fun.
the glacier look like it gets lit up. Yeah.
Yes, like a sunshine shining.
Amazing. Yeah, you can
You want to pull a photo
pull
out?
the photo out.
Well,
Show
this
us.
one's this one was, and here's painting it. So I painted it in the back room, and you did it in a way that was like shower doors going back and forth, and so there were different layers, and I had to have the layers, and then there was a white erase board behind it, and I'd do a simple drawing, and then I would move the things back and forth and go behind them and paint on one side and bring it around to the front and paint on the other side. So till I figured it out. So.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to finish it?
About total probably a year, but probably at least 8 or 9 months of painting, actual painting. But there's a lot of prep and stuff that goes with getting all the materials here and getting the parts made to work. So.
And you have artwork on the ferry too.
Oh yes, there's quite a few different paintings on the ferry by harbor arts people, and at one point we thought we were all going to get to put it on there as a sale, and then we were told by the state that was the 1% for that particular ferry was not going to be done that way, and so we donated them. So yes, I have the Columbia Glacier, a pretty large one that's in the cafeteria there, and then I have several others that are scattered.
What do you think the relationship between the youth of Cordova and the elderly people of Cordova is like? How do you see that?
I see some of the elderly people going to the ball games, the basketball games especially. I always attend because my kids were two of my kids were very involved in basketball. But I think probably there isn't that much of a relationship most of the time, except unless it's a family that has both the elderly and the young living here. And then there'll be some interaction that way.
Would you like to see a better relationship between the generations?
I think it would be really good, and I think in respect especially, because I think quite often the young don't really understand what all the older people have done, or it's well forgotten, and I think that because they don't know and because they don't interact, and that sometimes there is almost a disrespect for things. I mean, even at my mural, sometimes because I found that where the screws screw the plexiglass to the wall, I have put on covers over them, and the kind that I started with actually were part of the screw and were held on tight, but they bugged out and they didn't look very good. So I took them down and I put flat ones that actually are just sticky type things, and I painted them to help cover them. And down where it's easy to get to them, the kids pull them off. you know, and so I've replaced them 3 or 4 times. So, you know, and it's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
You know,
I know some more of your artwork on the trash cans.
oh, yes.
You should tell about that.
My grandson especially thought, oh, great, Mom, Grandma, you're painting trash cans. But it's really pretty neat when you go, I think, out to the different recreation sites and you look at the trash cans and they have paintings on them. And most of the time, it has something to do with that area. So that
Yeah.
you have come up with.
Darla made an excellent black bear on Sheridan that was picked up by a black bear, that trash can. And she put a black bear and put a red circle and a slash on it. And it's really pretty cute.
No, I think
And
actually,
she's done a lot of the trash cans out on the Delta.
yeah, which is kind of fun, I think. And some of the ones in town, I think even the one behind the high school, which has like fireweed going from barely coming up and then from being blooming and then seed, going to seed on the different sides. So you'll have to look and see. I didn't know where it was for years, and then I was like, oh, I think that's the one, and there it is.
Do you have a like a favorite painting that you've done or a favorite memory from over time of painting this area?
I don't know favorite. I went through today some of, you know, a lot. I don't.
Or one that was like most fun to paint, or one that.
Well, the mural right now at the Cordova Center is really kind of been fun because so many people make a comment about it and say that they always make sure they take their company down to it. So
Yeah.
And it's such
that's
a
been-
different
I always do that.
style, sort
Yeah,
of.
it's super pretty too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun, and it's down below, and so lots of times people don't get to see it or don't really think about it being there, but those who have usually have a positive thing to say about it. So that's it.
Did you have the idea of the rock work around it too?
Yes, and the reason is because on the outside there's rock, right, on the surface or of the building, and so when I first wrote up the whole plan was to bring the idea of that rock because of the rock out at the glacier on in, and I said that from the very beginning. And as you're doing any kind of project like that, things change. When I first wrote it up, it was supposed to just go along the wall on the right when you come in, just that one wall. And then somehow when I walked in and they were working on the building, I realized that when you walk in and straight in front of you would be much more appropriate to have.
Oh, yeah.
So then I talked to him about going all the way around, and then I wanted the rock to be real rock. And then then you know how you elaborate, you go on like, okay, but it would be neat if some of them were big enough for people to sit on. And, you know, and so then I was able to talk to Eagle Construction and get them to work with me. And they had, Dave Schusted had been really good the whole time in helping whatever steps I needed. And he said he could bring them in. And he measured rocks that would be just big enough to come through the door. And he told me, okay, these are the ones you get to choose from because they can go through the door. And so then I got to choose the rocks. And Chris Dunlap, who actually worked out at the Child's Glacier, she knew I was going to use real rocks, and she, you know, and I thought it'd be neat to use some that came from out there. So she actually started bringing them in and putting them down at the bottom of my stairway in my house, so that quite a few of the rocks. And then the very first convention that was there was a historical group, and they had, well, part of it was for them to go out to the glacier, and I went with them, and I told them what I was doing because I was going to collect some of the small rocks to put in. So they went and helped me actually pick up a lot of the little small rocks that we could put in, you know, as it gradually goes smaller. So that was kind of neat too. And I think they
a lot of
thought it was
people
pretty
were part
neat.
of it.
Yeah, so they thought it was neat.
Yeah.
And so, being from Iowa and then experiencing glaciers in Alaska, like, what does that make you think? You know, from being in one place and being in such a different place.
So actually, from Iowa, I left there when I was 5, but I've been on a big, huge farm up until that time. So I had the run of the whole farm, you know, with my big brother, with a big, huge barn. and apple trees to climb and pick apples and all that kind of stuff. And then went to El Paso, and then we were actually living in a mobile home for a while in a mobile home park. That was a shock.
Yeah.
But then we grew up and bought a house, and but it was a city life. And so, but I've always been adventurous, maybe from that early farm life. And so, I was quite willing to come with my husband, who was the one who really wanted to come to Alaska.
Was there any other reasoning besides like a job opening or something, or was it just pure?
Well, my husband had, when he was in high school, they had the Alaska magazine in his classroom, and when he would finish his schoolwork, he would read the Alaska magazine, and so it gave him the
You just wanted to come
So I
for
just
holidays?
came along with him.
Have you traveled anywhere else, like outside of the United States or something, or a travel trip that's been most memorable? or
My
something?
kids have traveled a lot more than I have, but in Mexico, because it's right on the border. Yeah, just so not that far beyond.
Anything cool, like traveling wise in the States or in Mexico, like really cool adventures that you remember?
Well, a unique thing that happened when we were just in New Mexico. So, okay, not Mexico, but New Mexico. Going up into the Gila Wilderness, we were camping, and we actually where you hike down and wade the Gila River, and we got I don't know, a mile down off the main road, and couple were stuck in the river, and the man was completely passed out, and the wife was needing help. So I was with my sister-in-law and her children and my husband, and we all worked and got the thing unstuck. The man was still unconscious, and so my husband drove them 25 miles over very narrow, winding roads to Silver City, New Mexico, and got him to the hospital. And then we followed him in, and he survived. And come to find out, he lived very close to where we lived in El Paso. And 1 year later, when we were ready to move to Alaska, and we were selling our Mustang fastback car that was so pretty, and looking for a truck, we answered an advertisement, and it was those same people that we had rescued, and he had that truck on